And see, we still have, oh, I forgot the joke book. I was so set on like making sure I closed Outlook and paused Slack notifications. Forgot the joke book today.
Someone you know posted an Earth Day joke in our Slack.
Oh, today is Earth Day.
Does anybody have it?
I'm getting it.
That's everything.
I'm getting
Now
it.
we need to know.
So this was from Jeanette. I was going to throw an Earth Day party tonight, and I think the picture's like a sad faced bear. I was going to throw an Earth Day party tonight, but I forgot to plan it. PLANET. Gold, I tell you, gold.
It's the ones that are puns that I appreciate.
Okay, and here's another one. Since we've got some time to kill, and this is how we do it at IU. Why did the M&M go to school?
I don't know, Michelle. Why did the M&M go to school?
He wanted to be a smarty. That one came from your house, Andy.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that was the one that I was like, wait, something about alphabet or, because they're M's or, no, I was thinking too complex.
Yes, Maggie's here, totally in time for the joke. I've been saving up popsicle sticks every time my kids finish one, so I'm ready. Totally ready when you guys need another one.
For those of you that have not attended an IU session before, sorry, and also you're welcome at the same time. Because when we talk, that your audio is working. So
here's my favorite one from lately. What can you find shaking at the bottom of the ocean?
I don't know.
A nervous wreck.
Okay, yeah. That's pretty good.
I wonder if I should say a nervous shipwreck, but just a nervous wreck. Yeah. Okay, I'm turning my video off. This is your show. I'm just here for the joke.
Thank you, Michelle, for that very important contribution.
Yeah, the opening act is critical, so thank you. We appreciate it. Andy, we're at time. You ready to get started?
Let's start this party.
Let's do it. All right. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Not so dicey, get rolling using the Unizin Data Platform is what we are going over today. So we're going to start with some introductions. Andy, why don't you go right ahead?
Sure. I'm Andi Strackeljahn. I'm a principal digital learning consultant for IU. I'm actually based out of one of our teaching centers because we have a teaching center on each of our IU campuses. So I primarily serve the Indianapolis campus, where I work with faculty to help them integrate evidence-based teaching practices into their classroom and also help them, make effective use of learning technologies.
And I am Emily Oakes. My role at IU is Principal Unizin IT Consultant. I am very lucky to be one of the few people in this world who are not Unizin staff and get to say my job is Unizin stuff. It is exciting to be able to do something different every day. And especially when it's stuff that you really believe in, like I do with this consortium's mission in particular. In addition, I am also IU's data steward for learning management and learning analytics data. So, aside from the sort of UDP outreach usage stuff that I do in my Unizin role, I also work on figuring out how to identify and put into place effective practices and protocols, policies and protocols for learning analytics use at IU. Andi said that she's based primarily on the Indianapolis campus. I'm based in the Bloomington campus, but technically my role is university-wide. So I wanted to start by pulling in a slide from one of the presentations that I had planned to give yesterday. I apologize if any of you were planning to attend one of those other sessions yesterday. I was unfortunately out ill and am still recovering, so please be patient with me as we get through this. In October 2019, I held a one-day summit for all of our teaching and learning center staff from around the state. It was as part of our statewide IU IT conference. Folks were already traveling to Bloomington, so we said, great, I want to spend a day getting everybody up to speed on what Unizin is, right? Like, what is that? We've got grapes, we've got purple, but like, you know, it was a pretty abstract concept for people for a really long time, and we wanted to do something about that. So we pulled everybody together into one big room and just spent the day going through different activities. We had Dr. Jill Bubin, then Unizin's chief academic officer, who came down and shared a little bit of an opening for the day, a presentation about what the consortium is about. And then we spent the most of the rest of the day completing 6 different breakout activities. One of them was the dice game that we are going to be doing here. So this activity was part of our effort to increase Unizin awareness on campus, which isn't just about like, we want you to know that the consortium exists, but also things like, hey, Unizin is about, you know, among other things, student success. So these technologies that we're making available, we're not making them available just because they're out there or they're the best price or whatever. We're making them available because they are effective. They are going to do something that we know is going to help students achieve success. We're trying to connect those dots. At the bottom of this page, and I'm actually going to transcribe this into the chat for you, there is a URL, go.iu.edu/2C5P. That will get you to the materials for that day if you would like to check those out, including what we had done for this particular activity. So the materials that live on that site, there's a chapter where we, for the sake of this one-day summit, let the folks know who are attending that we wanted to help them identify some potential research ideas based on data points from Unizin services. We gave them some instructions that they read through. I'm not going to belabor that point right now. We provided a card that folks would use. So the idea was you have a bunch of physical dice of different colors. You shake them up, you roll them out, and then whatever number you get, you place it on the mat for the corresponding data point. And then you use those and say, all right, what can we learn from this? And Andy's gonna get a little bit more into what that brainstorming process looks like. Once we had sort of done that activity together, as we were doing it, we took those responses. What do we think we can learn from this? What do we think we can take away from these data points? We logged those in a Google form and ultimately made those responses available in our Summit Pressbook at the end of that day, which is what that link I dropped into the chat is for. That'll get you to these results and also the materials for holding this day. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Andy to go through the logistics of the game.
So our hope was, of course, when initially planning this session for you all, that we would be together and we would roll these dice and have discussions about them. But of course, here we are in Zoom. And so thankfully, we were able to create a virtual version of this. So you all still do get to roll some dice. Again, the whole point of this activity is meant to be generative. A lot of times when we talk about the data that's available, even just in Canvas, much less all of the UDP, it's a little overwhelming and it's difficult to say, you know, what should I actually be focusing on And so the idea here is to give some really concrete data points to jump off and start that conversation about what can we find out from these and what do we want to know more about. So in a few moments here, you will get to roll these dice, which have random, which will give you a random face or data point for each area here. And then you'll use those faces to create a student profile or a type of story, you might say. If you're familiar with story dice, this is a riff on that. So you'll assign data points to the faces, and then you'll work through with your group what sort of questions could you answer about teaching and learning with these data points. Um, Also on the page, there are some reflection questions that we'll get into a little bit later. But our first time around, we really just wanted to focus on having you experiencing it. So if you go to the next slide there, Emily. So this is your chance to actually do this. We will send you out into some breakout rooms just for about 5 minutes to get a handle on what this activity looks like and start discussing the data points and what sort of stories or assertions you can make about them. So I'm going to post the link to the webpage in chat there. And so if you click on that, that should take you to an IU page. That looks a lot like the first one. Oh, yeah, thank you for the hyperlink there. And then Emily is going to send us off into groups of about 4 or so. If you could really super briefly introduce yourselves to each other, just name and maybe institution. We want to zip right through that and get to rolling the dice. All right, so you should see a pop-up on your screen inviting you to join a room. And if you don't see that pop up, it might actually just be in your bottom Zoom bar there. Looks like we got most people to room.
Probably set a timer. Set a timer for 4 minutes.
It's funny how 1 minute can seem like a long time, like when I ask people to like think about something on their own, but then like if it's 4 or 5 minutes, it goes really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I gave everybody 8 minutes to do something in my last session, and I made it intentionally like long. I made it intentionally 8 minutes because one of them had a lot of text, and that went by in the blink of an eye. Time works in funny ways on Zoom.
Yeah. If anyone is still here in the room and you need us to resend you to a room, send us a chat message or unmute. Oh, hi, Karen. Glad you joined. Right now, Emily can add you to a room.
Yes, 1 second. I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
If you click on unassigned, you should be able to assign her.
Got it. All right, off you go. Cool.
Oh, hey, I have access to this now too. That used to not be true. It used to be just whoever opened the rooms could see and move people around.
Just in time for the Unizin Summit. Thanks,
Or, you
Zoom.
know, it has been a whole month since I've done a Zoom webinar. So,
Good for you.
well, I mean, sorry, a webinar on Zoom.
I see.
On Zoom, about Zoom.
It's like, that's impressive.
But I have another one in a few weeks.
Ooh. There's one thing that I'm sure you're not getting sick of at Zoom.
You know, I'd rather talk to people about teaching in Zoom than copying their Canvas course, though.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
In the grand scheme of things.
I suppose it's probably more intellectually challenging, yes.
Yes.
I'll open this while not sharing. Oh, I hope it's going well in there.
I know, it's always like, oh, I don't want to jump in, especially in a short, when it's not a class, you know?
Yeah.
If it's a presentation, if people want to complain about whatever, then I'm fine with it.
Why don't I give everyone like a 30-second warning?
Sure. Mm-hmm. At my house, this warning would cue the final countdown.
Yeah, when do we get that Zoom feature? Like
an iPad held above head as if it is a boombox, though this child has no idea what a boombox is. But it's apparently a natural inclination. With no, you know, social cultural context for, you know, a boombox still.
That's so funny. 2, 1. All right, I'm gonna pull everybody back. Dun, dun, dun. Here we go. I forgot it gives everyone 60 seconds to leave.
But some people are very rule followy and are like, oh, I need to go as soon as it says so. Whereas others are like me and just let it kick you out.
Yeah. Should I send everybody back to the same rooms, or do you think we should shuffle?
I guess maybe the same room. Although it looks like room 4 only had 2 people in it, maybe.
Yeah, I saw
wait,
people
that's
bouncing.
at this moment.
Five, 4, 3, 2. What is happening? That number was jumping all over the place.
Zoom was having a moment. Counting is hard. And then you got to count backwards. That's even, yeah. Welcome back, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
All right. So we just wanted to do a short round there so that now you have an opportunity to ask any questions or get clarifications on things that were confusing. So if you have a question, feel free to unmute and ask it verbally, or if you would prefer, you can type a question in chat.
What does assigned values mean?
Okay, I should have been more clear about that. So assign values, that step means depending on what the dice roll says, so maybe it says pages viewed and engage, give that a number. So maybe 12, they've viewed 12 pages in their e-text. Or if it's Canvas and it says assignment date, oh, here we go, quiz score, give that an actual value, a numerical value. So maybe they got a 90 on their quiz score. And so once you actually have a discrete value for these things, it's easier to have a conversation about what might be going on.
I see. So we're assigning fake values that represent one student.
Yes.
Got it.
And if you get to talking through those values and they kind of don't make sense together, then change them or re-roll and get different data points. Other questions?
I guess that's what was confusing to me as well is like, for ours, we understood it from student behavior, but it didn't really make sense how we're supposed to do that from the course or the course instructor. Like quiz scores, okay, well, I have a quiz score value for that student, but how does that tell me anything about the course instructor?
And in here, we are more focused on the student behaviors as opposed to the instructor, but obviously instructor behaviors play an implicit role in all of these areas.
Any other questions, or do you all feel like you kind of get it?
Are we doing it again?
Yes.
Yes, I was just counting in my head to give that appropriate wait time. So yes, we are going to send you out to those rooms again to roll the dice and then make sure that you're actually looking through those questions about like, what can you say based on this data? What would you like to know more about to make perhaps a more meaningful conclusion? And in this round, when we come back together, we are going to ask that one person from each group share out with everyone else. And so to make that really easy on you, whoever has the highest temperature outside right now, you are going to be the spokesperson for your group. So when you get back into your breakout rooms, take a quick moment to check what your temperature is outside right now, and whoever is the warmest, you are the winner and you get to be the spokesperson. So when we come back together, we will ask you to share one insight related to the reflection questions that are on the bottom of that page.
One quick comment, Andy. We had
Yes.
asked the session host to turn on screen sharing so we could look at one person's dice roll since we're all rolling something different. And that is now on for any other room who also needs to see that the screen sharing is on.
Excellent. Wonderful. Yes, that'll be much easier if for your group one person shares. And so then you're actually all looking at the same set of faces of the dice together. Excellent. All right, well, I think off you go now. It looks like we have a few people that are, okay, it's started. Looks like we have a few people that are unassigned. I'm going to put you in a room.
Yes. Shove in a
Yeah,
room.
Gail. Awesome. Okay. Sign 2. Okay. We ended up with 2 rooms that only have 2, but everyone else has a nice number. If you're still in this main room and you want to be in a breakout room, you've been invited to one. It just may not be showing up for you. There should be a little alert one down in your bottom Zoom bar. Hey, what do you think for the sharing out time if we actually stop the screen share so that people are more likely to see each other? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, big fan of that. Although I guess we'll want to put the report out questions in the chat then so people can see them.
Yeah, I can copy those red now.
The folks in room 6 had a question about the actual exercise that they're doing right now. So I don't know if one of y'all wants to pop in there and address that for them, or if that's if you guys have time to do that.
What do you want to do, Andy? We've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I don't see a way to move my cell. No.
What room?
I think room 6.
So hilariously, it's not showing me join
It's
for a room, but I can assign you, Emily.
I know, I can assign you.
it actually
Okay,
says
just assign me then. That's fine.
Let's see what happens.
Okay.
Room, wait, what?
Andy, you actually have, it says that you're in room 6, but you haven't joined. So you may have a pop-up under another window.
Interesting, because it doesn't show that. Oh, wait, if I click on, okay, nope, I figured it out. I'm joining.
Dun, dun, dun.
Never a dull moment with Zoom.
I know, I was so, I had worked out with Andy a backup plan in case we couldn't get breakout rooms working for some reason or another.
Glad we were able to accommodate. I mean, I know we have the feature, but like at Unizin, there's only the only people who know how actually know how to work Zoom are the people who usually run the meetings. And as an engineer, I try to avoid scheduling meetings at all costs. I'd rather get anything done that I can by email. So I've actually managed to go a full year without really learning how to operate any of the advanced features in Zoom.
Right.
But
well, for what it's worth, you wouldn't know it. Like, showing up and having you waiting to help in these sessions is like itself a huge weight off. So thank you to all of you.
Yeah, we decided early on that it was going to be really useful to have Unizin people available to sort of facilitate that.
I especially, of course, wondered like, where on earth are you going to get the people to sit in all these sessions? I know that you don't have that many staff, so yeah, I was curious.
Yeah, it's I mean it's they asked staff to volunteer, so that's that you get who you get. No, I'm sure like being distance educators, you guys are like experts now, so I don't really feel like I have to do all that much. You guys seem to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm actually I play one of these folks on TV, but my background is totally in like IT support.
Oh, okay.
I'm a technical person who is far more comfortable working on the technical aspects of the thing, far more so than being the person doing the meeting hosting stuff.
Well, that's surprising because you seem quite knowledgeable about all the aspects of just. I guess you've had no choice but to learn.
Yeah, I like to learn a lot. Like support people will often end up doing. Let's see. Have you heard anything more from that group? I'm assuming Andy's got them covered.
Yeah, I mean, looks like Andy's in there, so I'm sure they're having a blast.
We got that special treatment.
It's the VIP. There's one room. Okay, there's a couple of rooms with only 2 people in them, which is kind of strange. But.
Yeah, I did think I saw some people bouncing around 2 different rooms. Oh, hi, welcome back. You are muted.
Yes. How much time do we have left?
Not long. I was just going to hit close all rooms.
Okay.
Oh, you good on that?
Yep.
All
right. Final countdown. Do you want me to move ahead to report out?
Yes. And then I've also copied these questions.
Figured I'd let you read them and then I'll close out the PowerPoint.
There they are.
Welcome back, everybody.
Awesome. It's always interesting to me when doing Zoom sessions with different groups, what are the type of group of people that jump out as soon as they get the warning that the rooms are closing, and which of them are like me and wait to be kicked out by Zoom. So in our remaining time together, we wanted to kind of, have a report out from each of the groups, because it's likely, with the different combinations of dice and the different combination of folks in the rooms, that you probably had different discussions or focused on different things. And then also talk about maybe perhaps what are some of the shortcomings of looking at just this information. So I'm putting these kind of reflection questions here. How might this data or additional data be used to inform decisions about how we teach? If only this data is used to inform teaching decisions, whose voices may be left out? So I'm putting those two questions in chat, and then we're going to stop screen sharing so that we can hopefully maybe look at a few more of each other here in Zoom land. So if someone from group, let's start at the end. I'm a, end of the alphabet person. So group 9, is there anything you would like to share with us?
Well, my temperature outside was warmer than in New York, so I guess I get to go. Our dice came up with some interesting traits, including uses screen reader and infrequently asks questions as observable. So that actually raises a lot of red flags. And you'd want to know more about the student to see, does the student need additional support? But some of our data points in isolation were not very helpful. For Engage, we had date annotation was created. As a standalone data point, it doesn't tell a very full story.
Cool. So yeah, some pieces of information by themselves, maybe not particularly enlightening. When you put them together, perhaps more could be ascertained about that student. Were you going to add something, Emily?
No, sorry.
Okay, you had like the head
that was
shake,
a
and I
fake.
wasn't sure if that was like
It was a
active
fake out on
listening
mute.
or. Okay, group 6, did you have something to share with us?
So I feel like this is unfair because myself and my, of course, director, Jennifer Smith, live in Florida. So we always get the short end of the stick in this. So even though today, ironically, it was actually very cool today. It was very, very cool. It's in the 60s here, so it's wonderful. But anyway, I just want to point that out. So we got for our dice roll, Engage, total number of annotations, top hat, attendance record, which I thought were very valuable things, and then some other observable traits. But when we thought about kind of the second question first, which is if only this data is used to inform teaching decisions, whose voice may be left out? And I think I think all of us agreed that the student's voice is left out, right? I mean, we really don't know from the student's perspective, what some of those values might represent. And I think Holly and Karen both said, for some of these items, it might not, again, be an accurate portrayal of that student's engagement, right? So a student might be engaged and, annotate 3 or 4 times versus, another who, and that student might actually be a very engaged student who's doing very well in the class versus another student who might, have a lot of annotations, but, might not really be as engaged. And then for how might this data or additional data be used to inform decisions of how we teach, I think that gets to it, right? Is how do we really tell from all of these data points if that student or students are being successful in the class, right? I mean, and then from, I think Emily in her previous presentation in the last hour really brought it, to head, which is how do we apply and make any sort of amendments to those data points, year over year and term over term? Is, can we ascribe different value sets based on that? So, and Holly and Karen, please feel free to chime in if I missed anything.
I think that's a great point, though, thinking about the kind of trends across time. That was also something that came up in another room of, just looking at one student in isolation from how the rest of the students are performing in the class is also missing a piece of the picture. Awesome. Room 5, what do y'all have to share with us?
I'm gonna guess that Florida had a warmer temperature than Penn State or Indiana.
Was that us?
Yeah, that was you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Crystal and I have been IMing back and forth because we both forgot to see what room we were in. Okay, yeah. So I'm actually, it's 72 degrees where I am today. So I don't know. John's out at the coast, so I've got a little.
Here too, Jennifer, at the health center.
So we actually spent a little bit of time talking about how advisors might be using some of this information because Megan in our group is looking at supporting advising through some of this data. And we talked a little bit about the fact that they're not going to be able to see some of the they're not going to see the observable behavior, so some of that they're not going to have. So what can they do with the data points that they are getting? And I guess a question with that is, are they going to have something that will show them how students in general are doing in the course so that they do have that relationship between the individual student and the whole group? So we were also talking a little bit about as faculty are looking to make course improvements, they're going to want to see kind of a bigger picture, not necessarily just a single student. So they're going to need to see bigger sets of information to look at that. So I think that's kind of what we talked about. Crystal, Megan, jump in if I missed something.
Yeah, I think that's right. One thing that we did wonder about was we were trying to figure out how does this exercise sort of orient us to how to think about data that sit within the UDP versus how we would practically use it, because we didn't imagine using it sort of at this individual student level, but how would we sort of understand groups of students, or how students who engage this way, they correlate with this kind of behavior or something. So more like profiles, I guess.
Yeah, and of course there's work being done to create, we have the initial Canvas analytics, but to create additional dashboards that make use of other UDP data to display them together. But then once we have that, yeah, it comes back to, okay, so then what do we do with that? And I think comparing the aggregate course, what is going on there, to individual students could of course help you perhaps flag individuals that need additional intervention or support. See, I think that was group 5, or was that group 4? Okay, so group 4, you're up.
That's me, because it's 54 in Indiana, but at Northwestern it's 50. So I will take every degree though that I can, even though our feels like temperature is probably the same. So so Abby and I looked at, I'm going to show you, we took a screen capture real quick of what ours looked like. And you can see here that this, again, like everyone else has said, the data is incomplete by, the length of an annotation, attendance percentage, like these are things that maybe we might be able to get some ideas, but not what we would need to make changes. And so, like others have said, we talked about there needs to be more ways to incorporate the student voice. So if this is like a particular student, we might want to have, office hours, invite people to office hours, have conversations that way. Maybe if we needed to do things anonymously across the class, ask people to complete a survey, or looking at that, like John, I think, brought up the over years, or over the semester kind of thing, longer term look at things. At the end of each semester, we could ask students to write reflections on things that they thought went well, or things that they would suggest changing from their point of view. Because in some of this, we thought, well, maybe the problem is a communication issue with the faculty member. And you don't necessarily get that kind of feedback from standard course evaluation. So there might be a way in which you could get more detailed information and have the students feel like they're part of improving the class. Our student athlete using a screen reader, I could see how, like, if you're on a trip, I was a student athlete, listening to your content versus reading it, like while you're on the bus or the plane or whatever your school can afford, would be a different way of doing things. But the idea of we might see differences with, so for those of you who are not Unizin member schools, Engage is our e-reader platform. And so the stuff there about the length of annotation and the screen reading software, well, maybe they're not putting in annotations because the screen reader is not working with it. It's hard to know why, but we might be uncovering some accessibility issues with the data we have too. And we shouldn't just assume that the student doesn't want to do it, but maybe they are unable to do so. So those are just, some highlights from the conversation Abby and I had.
Awesome. Thank you. I think
I do want to just add on to what Michelle was saying there. Everybody, I think, has pretty rightly brought up the whole, we need more information to take action. Totally on board with that, as some of you saw in the last hour. But I also want to point out that, again, as I mentioned in the last hour, what the analytics can help us do is give us an early warning. They can be the thing that say, hey, there's something weird going on here, and we need to go and get some more information about what's happening. All right. Sorry, Andy.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that you all are hitting on the points of exactly why we did this activity at the meeting with our consultants and with other learning technologies folks, is to get at, first of all, what data is available in the UDP, what is out there, help make that concrete, as opposed to like this thing that is listed in our knowledge base that gives some data about something. So to give it, a concrete meaning, but then also to bring attention to possible implications or, problem points of how this data is used or could be perhaps misused if it's by itself. So people get excited that we have access to this data, and that is a wonderful thing to have that continued access. But we need to be very thoughtful with how we use it, which really folds into what you have all been raising. And what Michelle just posted there in the chat is the review, amend, apply framework that we have been using at IU. And it's a really straightforward framework that Emily talked about earlier in the summit, but it focuses on saying like, okay, wonderful, you have this concrete data, but then it's an opportunity to have conversations with your students about why they are doing these things or why they aren't doing certain things. So why are they reading all of the pages in the text, but not making any annotations? Maybe they didn't even know they could do that. Or as Michelle pointed out, maybe the way they use that technology actually doesn't allow them to because there's an accessibility issue. So all sorts of different pieces moving around there. We do have the press book about the overall meeting and the different stations that were used in that meeting with folks, as well as, again, that link to the game if you want to reuse that. We would love for you to use it with folks at your institution. So drop us a note and let us know how we can support you in your conversations about learning analytics at your institution. And I believe that is it. Does anyone have any final questions or, words of wisdom?
I do want to say thank you all for sticking around with us until at least Indiana time, 4:49 in the afternoon. I am surprised and very grateful that we have 23 of you here with us. So thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for the resources.
You're very welcome. Bye, thanks. Bye, Vicki.